Is it possible for a king to be both hated and revered by his people? You might think that this is a modern problem, but no. Well, his father, John Lackland, was the kind of guy who got himself into scrapes. Like when he got into a massive disagreement with the English barons over taxes and the best way to run the country. Like any self-respecting medieval monarch, John thought that he had the divine right to rule and that he did not need to listen to anyone. But the barons didn't agree, and they ended up killing him. And in 1242, they forced him to sign another charter which gave them even more power. This time, though, Henry was prepared. He raised an army and marched on London, defeating the rebellious barons and reasserting his authority as king. But this victory was short-lived, because while Henry was away, a new threat had emerged. Isabella had taken control of the government and was ruling in Henry's name. She was now allied with the French and was using her power to get back at the English barons who had opposed her. When Henry returned to England, he found that he was a very different king from the one who had left. His power was broken and his kingdom was in chaos. So now Henry was king, although he wasn't really in charge. In 1264, he had led an English army into Wales to put down a rebellion, and even his wife and children seemed to have hated him. But the people of England as a whole seemed to like him, or at least they liked the idea of him. Henry was the first English king to be born in England, and he represented a new era in English history. He was the first king of a truly English dynasty, and he was the first king to speak English as his native language. Whether he was a good or bad king doesn't really matter. Henry III was an important one, and in the town of Llandwi Brefi, he managed to defeat the Welsh and take the town. It was a small victory, but it was enough to give him the title of the second founder of England. Why? Well, because he had conquered Wales and brought it into the English kingdom. A regency was set up until he came of age, and he spent most of his childhood living with his mother and being generally miserable. Even in medieval England it was a thing. And today we're going to meet the medieval monarch who started out as an absolute nobody, got the crown not once but twice, had at least 3 lost his kingdom to a woman who wasn't even related to him, and left a legacy so tainted that he was called the second founder of England, right after William the Conqueror. Let's talk about King Henry III. Henry III came to power in 1216 at the tender age of 9 months old. How did this happen? In 1227, when Henry was 16, he finally got fed up with living under the control of his mother and the regents, and decided to take matters into his own hands. With the help of some loyal nobles, he marched on London and forced the regent to give him full powers as king. Sweet victory, except it was actually a Pyrrhic victory, because his barons now hated his royal guts. They forced him to sign the Magna Carta again, which limited his power and made him more of a figurehead than an actual monarch. Not exactly what you want when you're trying to build a legacy. But young Henry was very much a product of his environment. He liked hunting, hawking, and all the other trappings of a medieval monarch, even if he didn't really have any power. And in 1232, when he went to France to try to get back some of the territory that England had lost to France in the previous century, he did it in style. Henry took with him not just an army, but also 2 mistresses, one of whom, Rosamund Clifford, may have been the inspiration for the character of Sir Gawain in the medieval poem and romance, The Knight of the Cart. Sadly, that didn't end well. While Henry was in France, his counselors basically kicked both women out of his court and put them under house arrest. Then when Henry returned to England, he got himself in hot water with the Pope by marrying a woman named Isabella. And when the Pope threatened to excommunicate him, Henry was like, fine, whatever, and converted to Catholicism. Sort of makes you wonder if he really believed in any of his political or religious affiliations, doesn't it? Now, throughout all of this, Henry had been losing the support of his barons, who were starting to get fed up with him. Henry III died in 1265, leaving the throne to his son, Edward I. But before he died, he had one last chance to redeem himself. So was Henry III a good or bad king? Well, that depends on who you ask. The English barons hated him. The Welsh hated him. Hey, thanks a ton for watching. I really appreciate it and hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe and share. If you have any suggested comment below. I will see you in the next videos.